I have 4 questions to ask yourself when considering any acting opportunity, and only one of them is about pay. The other 3 are about the credit, the footage, and artistic fulfillment. And yes, sometimes as a result of this process, you come to the conclusion that you should turn down the opportunity. Scandalous! But we'll get to that. Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. Oh, and if you don't subscribe to our Monday newsletter, The Scuttlebutt, you're missing out, especially if you're an actor here in the Southeast, because not only do we release these videos, but we also try to give you as much information on what's going on in the industry, both locally in the Southeast, but also nationally. We're up to over 200 issues. Wow. Now on to our topic. There are 4 questions that I want you to think about as you stare at a potential opportunity. It could be the audition, the callback that's being offered to you, or maybe you're at the point of the deal memo itself. And here are the 4 questions. Does it pay? And do you need that money? Is the credit going to be worth it? Will the footage look great on your demo reel? And will it be artistically fulfilling? Probably should have just done that. And none of these are as simple as it may sound on the surface. But here's the punchline of this video. Any opportunity should check at least one of those boxes for you to feel confident in saying yes to this opportunity. But let's unpack it by talking about some hypothetical examples. Okay, for this first one, let's consider an industrial, which is just a corporate training video for, I don't know, a hardware store that's going to pay you $1,000 for what will only be a half day of work. Okay, you need the money? Done. End of story. Is it your first credit ever? Great, do it. If you don't need the money, then unless you're trying to build up footage for a host reel, for example, then you won't be using the footage from an industrial on any sort of demo reel. So that checkbox will be left empty. And the credit, again, unless this is your very first booking ever and you're trying to impress your agent, it's not going to look good on a TV and film resume. You don't really need to put industrials on a TV and film resume. So it's not really checking that box. Again, unless you're very early in your career and you're accepting every opportunity. So that leaves the artistic fulfillment checkbox. I've done dozens upon dozens of industrials in my career, especially my early career. So I can say with reasonable certainty that this is not going to be artistically fulfilling. Sorry, generic hardware store. So it just circles back around to the money. If you need the money, do it. If you don't need it, and let's say the shoot date conflicts with your daughter's dance recital, well, you have a good reason then to turn this down. Okay, let's switch gears to, let's say, a non-union commercial for a regional fast food chain. Once again, it's not going to be artistically fulfilling. In fact, most of the commercials I've done in my career have been soul-sucking in many regards, even national union commercials. Now, if you have 0 credits and your agent sent you this, then you should say yes to it. That fulfills that checkbox of the credit being worth it because you're building a relationship with your agent and with that casting director. But if you've been at this game for 10 years, you already know that casting director, you have a solid relationship with your agent, then the credit is no longer worth it. It's not a checkbox that gets checked. And unless there's something so specific about the role, you won't need the footage for your reel. The exception might be that they're going to showcase one of your special skills that is not represented anywhere on your resume. And so, yeah, you're going to say yes to this job that will showcase your awesome roller skating abilities. And so now that leaves us with money. Oof, you got to be very careful here with a non-union commercial because the rate up front, the session fee might be attractive. It might be enough to cover 2 months of your rent and expenses. And that becomes really tempting, but it's a fast food chain and it's non-union. And the buyout might be 2 years, 5 years. It might be a forever buyout across all media known and yet to be discovered throughout the universe, which means that not only will you never get another cent for how many times they air this commercial, but also theoretically, for the rest of your life, you can never audition for another fast food commercial again because they have that exclusivity over you, even though they only paid you a couple $1,000 maybe. Now, in reality, no commercial has that long of a lifespan, so you probably will be able to audition for other fast food commercials in the future. It just might not be in the near future. And so even though there might be dollar signs up front, you have to look at the long-term ramifications of those dollar signs to decide whether or not the money truly is worth it. Okay, so now on the money spectrum, let's go to the opposite end and look at a non-paid PSA. This gets more complicated because it doesn't pay, so it can't check that box. So you have to immediately jump to the other three questions. The credit won't necessarily look great on a resume, and you probably don't need to do it just to build a relationship with your agent or the casting director. The footage may or may not be good for your demo reel because, it might just be very simple. It might even be a very short 15-second PSA. So that leaves us with artistic fulfillment. If this is a cause you truly believe in, then it's going to be artistically fulfilling for you to donate your time to this project. So that just becomes a personal decision on your part. Okay, and then let's just lump all of television and film into this final example category. Because this is what we all want, right? These should always be yeses. There's no reason to turn down a TV or film audition or booking, right? Right? But let's get specific. Let's say you're auditioning for a TV show for a network, cable, or streaming. Well, then the pay just got bumped up substantially from some of those other jobs you might have been auditioning for that were local commercials or industrials, etc. So if you're new to this realm of union television and film opportunities, you're going to say yes to any booking or any audition for that matter. But for someone like me, who's over 20 years into this journey, working for scale, I don't always need the money, so that checkbox isn't immediately checked. So I jump to, is the credit worth it? Is it a big tentpole feature in a cinematic universe? Yes, please. Is it the #1 show on cable? I'm in. As for my reel, will the scene or scenes be opposite an Oscar-nominated actor? Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to say yes to that. Or maybe it's a character type I've never played. That will look good on a reel. But interestingly, if it's just a scene or two and it's a character I've played many times before, then the answer starts to get murky. Because let's say it's just another cop that I've done many times before. There's a good chance that experience will not be artistically fulfilling. So if that's the case, and let's say my scenes are with another local actor or even by myself, so there's no Oscar winners, and maybe it's a mid-range cable show that doesn't get a lot of ratings and is probably in danger of being canceled. Well, now the credit doesn't look that great, and suddenly I've only got like maybe half of a check in one of the boxes. And so it's not so simple to just automatically say yes to the opportunity. In fact, I've declined dozens of auditions over the course of the last 20 years that were legitimate, full-paid television and film opportunities because they didn't check any of the boxes. I could go on and on with so many examples, but I do want to share one specific anecdote without naming names that kind of encapsulates this whole discussion. About 8 years ago, a casting director wanted to call me back for a television project that, for reasons that I won't sort of unpack, paid less than the normal SAG-AFTRA scale. It was only a couple $100 a day, and it might have been a couple days of work. And at this point in my career, I was used to significantly more money on a television or film booking, so already I'm scratching my head. In fact, I told my agent to not waste their time by booking me a time slot for the callback unless production was willing to bump up their pay. And this is where I heard back from the casting director by way of my agent that essentially they were offended. They didn't understand why I wouldn't work for this lower rate. I mean, am I too good for a SAG ultra low budget project or a student film that has, union contracts or something like that is low pay or even no pay? Am I suddenly too good for those opportunities? That's the tone that I read into it as my agent relayed this message to me. And it was a naive argument for the very reasons I'm sharing in this video. It's never just as simple as the pay. Because this particular show was in a category of shows that I had done before. I'd actually worked for this production company on a previous show a couple years prior. And so I knew from experience that the type of footage that would come from this would be useless on my demo reel. The credit was not impressive based on the type of show it was, that I already had it on my resume, a similar show, and it wasn't a huge network. So credit and footage were empty checkboxes. And we'll just say that based on the low budget, unsafe conditions, the previous time I worked for the production company led me to conclude that it would not be artistically fulfilling. So I had to draw a line at the pay. If they weren't willing to budge, then every single one of those checkboxes was empty, and it became a no. But I want to circle back to that question that the casting director sort of asked hypothetically about ultra low budget projects or student films, etc. Man, I will work for free on those projects if I can sense that it's going to be artistically fulfilling, if the role is challenging in a certain way, or if the people involved are going to make that experience special. Heck, I still will work for free or for low pay when I see those types of opportunities that are going to be artistically fulfilling, or they're going to end up with amazing footage for my demo reel. Oh, and it dawns on me, there's one last question to ask yourself that can dominate the others for certain actors, and that is insurance. If you're on union health insurance, then you have to requalify every year. Right now, the minimum you have to make in a 12-month period is $27,000. So if you're in danger of losing your health insurance, then all those other checkboxes go out the window. The only one that matters is it union? Then yes, I will do it. And to be clear, you don't actually have to be in the union to take advantage of union health insurance. But to be even more clear, if you are in the union, you can never do non-union work. That is global rule number 1. So just want to make sure that no one's confused. So Brooke and myself have both been in positions where the clock is ticking and time is running out and we haven't made it to that threshold of insurance. And yes, there have been times where we didn't make it. And then there were times where just in that last month, something that we booked put us right over the edge. And sometimes it means that you even will jump back into background work, especially in commercials, because the union pay for background is great for a commercial, and it's a 1 day of work, and sometimes you get overtime and you factor in sometimes late fees or for other penalties. And it's like, oh, well, that actually helps get me closer to that insurance threshold. That's sort of a special case because, like I said, it does throw those other 4 checkboxes out the window because you're only concerning yourself with making insurance. The overall point of this video, however, was to give you a framework for analyzing potential opportunities. And by getting super specific about these questions and these answers, it takes it out of the emotional place of like, should I? Oh, I feel obligated. I feel guilted into doing this opportunity because my agent sent it to me. It gives you something a little bit more cerebral, a little bit more concrete to wrap your head around as a way of listening to that feeling inside, that maybe that sinking pit in your stomach that I don't know if I want to pursue this opportunity or accept this booking. That way, if you do turn it down and your agent or the casting director wants to know why, you will have an articulate response as to why you are declining this opportunity. And as a final corollary, I want to address the fact that I never really talked about the size of the role, partly because that opens a Pandora's box. A 1-scene co-star role on a hospital procedural could easily turn into 9 episodes, especially if that character is a staff member, a nurse, a doctor, etc. On the flip side, your character could have 18 scripted scenes, and then by the time you accept the job and get to set, they have cut 14 of those, and then in the edit, they cut 3 more of them, and in that only scene that ends up in the final product, you barely have any coverage. And so the size of the role becomes a hard metric by which to make this decision because there's so many factors that go into it that are intangible, that are unpredictable. So trying to discern if an opportunity is worth it simply due to the number of scenes or lines of dialogue just gets a little bit more tricky. But if you use these 4 categories as a starting point, it will help guide your soul and your heart and your mind and your brain and your head towards a decision that will help you sleep soundly. Okay, so what did I leave out? Are there any checkboxes that you use when trying to discern whether an opportunity is worth it? If so, drop a comment below. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.